In this world, nothing is for certain except for death and taxes and technical difficulties. If you've ever used a piece of technology, you have ran into at least one instance where something didn't work the way that it was supposed to. And on top of that, we as humans make mistakes all the time. We're not perfect. So when you combine technology and human beings together, especially in something as important as a church service, you're bound to run into a couple issues. So how do we eliminate as many mistakes as possible in our church tech teams? That's what this video is about today. How's it going, everybody? My name is David. I'm the head video editor here at ReachRight, and we like to make content that helps out churches just like yours and ministry leaders. And so if this is the content that you kind of enjoy and you want to see all the time, I would encourage you to hit that like button and subscribe so that you're notified every time we release a video. Now, I've been serving on the audio-visual team at my church on and off for about a decade now, and I've also served at different ministry events like conventions and conferences and summer camps. And if there's one thing I've noticed, it's that no matter the size or the amount of gear or the quality of gear that you have, there's always going to be some mistakes. On a Sunday morning, when you're trying to operate complicated technology and fancy gear, it can be frustrating and feel more like a job rather than you're attending a church service. In fact, there's a lot of controversy attached to production in churches. I hear it all the time. Why are we worried about how the lights look or how things sound or if our live stream is working properly or if we have enough camera angles? There's just an argument to be had that we should be focusing on God and not all of the tech issues. And that's a great argument to be had because we should be focused on God. But in my experience, the same people who take issue with technology and production in the church are the same people that have difficulty focusing when there's distractions, like not the right scripture being on the screen when the pastor is preaching, or not the right words during worship, or the microphone cutting in and out, or lights flickering on the stage. All of that stuff happens. We all run into that issue, and it can be difficult to focus and really experience everything that God has for you in a service when those distractions are around. So we can argue till we're blue in the face about live streams and fog machines and all these different fancy camera angles and lighting effects and all of that stuff not being needed, but the fact is, we should all be focused on God during a service, and the more that we can do in production and tech to kind of eliminate distractions for people so they can just come in and enjoy service, the better. And I understand that the fog machines and the crazy lighting effects and all the cameras, those can be distractions for people too in service. But I've been on missions trips to small churches that barely have any technology, and they at least have a microphone and an amplifier, and it's somebody's job to make sure that those are running right. And so today's video, we're really just talking about how to eliminate any mistakes in your church tech team. Now, the first strategy that we're talking about today to eliminate mistakes on your church tech team is by far the most important. Honestly, if you do this one strategy, everything else will kind of fall in place. And if you don't do this, everything else doesn't really matter. So we're gonna take some time on this because the first strategy is casting vision. Casting vision for your church tech team is really bringing forth what is the reason that we're doing everything that we do? And it's similar to what we talked about earlier in this video. We are trying to provide the best atmosphere for everybody in service to experience God distraction-free in the best way possible. Now, your own church is gonna obviously have your own kind of mission and vision statements that God is giving you, but in general, I think every church tech team is trying to make a seamless experience for everybody attending service that has to do with an audio visual dynamic. If you don't cast this vision for everybody serving on the tech team, what happens is it can become a job. You can get burnt out. People show up 5 minutes before service starts because they already know how to do it. They're just coming in, sitting down, changing a bunch of slides, putting batteries in cameras, and so on and so forth. And when issues arise, like a microphone cutting out or the live stream going down, it can be really easy if the person's heart's not in the right place to just say, oh, well, we don't have many viewers on the live stream anyway, let's just leave it down. Oh, the microphone will come back in a second. We don't really need to change the cord or anything like that. This kind of stuff happens more and more if people don't see the vision for the ministry that they're serving. Again, if they don't feel or recognize that they're serving God, then it just becomes a job, and those little things that happen that are issues aren't that important to them. But when you cast the vision and everybody serving on your tech team realizes that whenever there's an issue, it's getting in the way of what God's trying to do in the service for somebody receiving, on the other end of the live stream, for example, if they're trying to listen to what the pastor's saying and there's audio issues, obviously the person serving on the tech team, if they know, hey, somebody needs to hear this message right now, it's coming from the Lord, they're going to be motivated enough to fix the issue right away. That's why I put this first on the list and say that casting vision for your church tech team ministry is going to be something that will help eliminate every mistake that could possibly happen, because now people are motivated themselves and they're self-sufficient to try to eliminate any kind of mistakes that may happen. And too oftentimes I see churches, including my own, just asking people for free labor rather than providing them, hey, this is how you can actually serve the Lord through this task. So whether you're the leader of the tech team at your church, or you're just a pastor or ministry leader that sees the need in the tech team, or even if you're just a week-to-week volunteer, take some time to really sit and pray and try to figure out, what is the vision of this tech team? Why do we do what we do? And what's the bigger picture of serving the Lord through this ministry? Okay, I'll take off my pastor preacher hat finally and move on with this video, but that's so important because if you don't do that, people are going to get burnt out, which leads us to our second point, which is schedule people time off. Now, despite what you may see in the media about mega churches and everything, most churches are under 100 people and finances are tight. So for both of those reasons, most churches, including my own, have a very small pool of people to pull from to be able to serve on something like a tech team. And no matter the size, when you do get an established team of people, it can be very tempting to kind of just schedule the same people over and over and over to serve in your tech team. I'm just gonna say it, this absolutely cannot happen. I wouldn't even define this as something that's dangerous to do. I'm just gonna flat out say it's unacceptable. And you might be thinking, you don't understand. We don't have any options. We barely have anybody available to serve. We need everybody. I hear you. Let me continue though. Just like we talked about before, serving in the tech team and doing the same thing every single week, especially if you're not casting vision, is a guaranteed way for people to kind of get burned out and check out during service, at least mentally. And so as ministry leaders, we shouldn't be scheduling the same people over and over every single week, even if we don't have an option. So this is what I would do. Write down every single role in your tech team and everything that needs to happen on a Sunday morning. Then write down who you would normally have do those different jobs. And then you need to make a decision that you are only going to schedule those people a certain amount of times a month. Maybe it's once a month, maybe it's twice a month, but they cannot be serving every single week. I'm sorry. Now I know some people are paid full-time in their church tech team, and maybe that's a different situation that they actually do work those hours every single week. But the majority of the people that I'm talking about here are volunteers that come to church that aren't paid, and they really just do it occasional Sunday morning. Give these people time off so that they can be in service and receive the way that they're supposed to receive, and then serve with gladness when they are scheduled. So maybe you have roles that are necessary that you just simply can't fulfill if it means you have to schedule someone to do them every single week. This means that you might not have that second camera angle that you always rely on. You might not have the live stream available. These are things that I feel like you need to rip the Band-Aid off so that you can figure out those problems instead of just burning people out and having them potentially get so bad that they leave the church. Okay, you made it this far, so your reward is that the rest of this video are very easy, practical things to help you eliminate mistakes on your church tech team. The third strategy is please have a form of communication that you can use during service. I think a lot of churches default to just like texting the sound guy if there's an issue, but the problem with something like that is so many different people on your staff or ministry leaders or volunteers or whoever that's comfortable and comes all the time and knows everybody's serving is kind of doing that all at once. The sound guy will receive 8 different text messages once an issue happens while he is trying to fix the issue. So now he's getting distracted by his phone going off, all these people saying the same thing while he's already halfway through trying to fix it, and it's just kind of a nightmare. I would encourage you to look at something like Slack, where you can create a channel, have specific people in that channel, and then it's just really easy for everybody to send a message and see it all at the same time. Alternatively, you could also use something like walkie-talkies. A lot of walkie-talkies come with an earpiece, so they're not actually going off in service for everybody to hear over them. And everybody else that has an earpiece also hears, okay, somebody has already told this person that there's an issue, so it's getting solved and I don't need to contact them. The fourth strategy is probably the easiest one on this list, but if you're not intentional about it, you will forget. Keep a notepad handy during service. Way too often in service, we're used to things happening week in, week out, and every time an issue arises, we're usually able to fix it pretty quickly and then we just kind of move on. But every time some sort of issue happens, we really should be making a note of it, no matter how small it is, and then revisiting during the the week, okay, how can we make sure that this doesn't happen next week? The fifth strategy is something that I think is the least fun to do, but it is one of the most helpful, and that would be organization of all of your tech. Different batteries, different cameras, different tripods, different cords, different microphones. Tech has so much involved with it that has a lot of different equipment working together. And too often times, you'll see that people are just kind of throwing cords in a bin or something like that, or it's just kind of sprawled all over the place because again, these are usually the same people serving week in, week out, and we're just used to it. So you just go and grab it quick because you know it's there. But the problem is, the more that this happens, the more difficult it is to find this stuff in a pinch. And especially if you're having new people kind of come on and serve, you want them to see that we have everything organized so that when you need something, it's right there and it's very clear and direct. Now, a bonus tip that I'm throwing in here, I know it's not possible for everybody, but really try to prioritize having a dry run with volunteers serving on your tech team. I bring this up because again, too often times we just get there on a Sunday morning, we know what we're doing, we're used to it. So when we ask somebody to serve and just run slides, to us in our brain, it's really a simple thing. I mean, they're just clicking on a slide every time that the words change, right? But to them, it might be a brand new program that they're not used to, or a computer that they don't ever use. Maybe they're Mac users and you're asking them to use a PC and they get confused when they're trying to use keyboard shortcuts and stuff like that. It's all stuff that I feel like we kind of take for granted and don't realize how much could benefit if we actually walked people through something when they're not in the midst of the craziness that's happening live during service when all those nerves are in the air. A kind of risk-free environment where they can go through a dry run of the service as if it were happening, a rehearsal if you will, and make it so that they're more prepared on a Sunday. Pro Presenter, Easy Worship, these kind of presentation softwares, they're not necessarily always intuitive for people to learn. And so walking a church volunteer through the process outside of a Sunday and familiarize them with it can really help things go smoothly when it is go time. And honestly, a big mistake that I see a lot of churches make is that they're not using the right church presentation software for their size and for their skill set. And so if you wanna know what type of church presentation software would be best for your church, we actually made a video about that you can watch right here. But we'll see you in the next one.